Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, September 4th through Sunday, September 10th, 2023. This week, we are definitely still in Mercury retrograde. We will technically pass the halfway point of Mercury retrograde early this week, so we're still very much in the midst of it. Remember, though, Mercury retrograde only lasts for 3 weeks, so we are still in the middle of it, but we are getting to the final half of it, I would say. And I do think that this will be easier going forward, especially in terms of Mercury retrograde, because, on the one hand, it's Mercury retrograde. So yes, we have all those familiar themes of slowing down, going back, exploring our past, getting a more thorough understanding of things. We may be thinking more outside of the box. We're more intuitive. We're more, traveling in a non-linear fashion, doing things kind of a different way. We're a bit offbeat. We still have all those, very familiar basic Mercury retrograde themes. The main difference is that Venus is no longer retrograde. Venus did turn direct at the end of last week on Sunday. And so, I think that was a doozy, going into Mercury retrograde with Venus already retrograde, having two inner planets, Mercury and Venus both retrograde at the same time. I do think that makes it extra difficult because we were going through, a lot of changes, not just Mercury retrograde, not just the intellectual energy, the information, our learning, our habits, things like that. Not only was all that slowing down and going through this whole retrograde process, but also the pleasure, the desire, the abundance as ruled by Venus. So for the past couple of weeks, especially, we were going through some really intense, dramatic changes, personal changes. Now, of course, to some extent, we still are experiencing those things. However, with Venus direct, we can at least have that simplicity in that arena, in that area. With our pleasure, love, abundance, desire, our money, our relationships, those things can ideally, travel forward in a more linear way, a more straightforward way, and a more fun way. Venus is direct in Leo. So, that's not a change technically happening this week, but I did want to mention it since Venus just freshly turned direct on Sunday. This is one less retrograde energy we have to deal with. This is going to be very noticeable since Venus is, of course, an inner planet. So yeah, that will make that whole retrograde theme a lot easier. Also, I do tend to find that the beginning of Mercury retrograde periods tend to be more dysfunctional because, it comes to us as a shock, especially because, most of us aren't aware of these types of things. So, that's where you get the dysfunction. I think the dysfunction is at its height, generally speaking, at that very, beginning and, the first part of Mercury retrograde. By this point, as we are, passing halfway through this retrograde cycle, we are somewhat used to it. Even those of us that aren't born with Mercury retrograde, that are, that we may experience these things as dysfunctional. That does continue to some extent. However, it's not as shocking now. We've already experienced over a week of Mercury retrograde. We get it. We're in the midst of it, so that as well will make things a little bit more straightforward, a little bit less dysfunctional or bizarre going through this week. Last week was a heavy week. This is going to be a little bit simpler. So yes, Mercury retrograde continues. Venus is direct though. We do have one more planet turning retrograde though. So that would be Jupiter turning retrograde at 15 degrees Taurus. Jupiter is more so an outer planet, so I would still say that this affects us more on a societal level. We will definitely notice the day that Jupiter turns retrograde, though, because, Moon will be conjunct Jupiter. I'm going to talk more about that in the day-by-day forecast and what that means for our, day-by-day experience. But because of, that particular aspect, we may become, much more aware than usual of that, of Jupiter stationing retrograde. But I'm going to save my analysis for the day-by-day forecast. I don't want to get too into that right now. The main thing happening this week, though, is the third quarter moon in Gemini. So I know that most people don't tune in for quarter moons. I always say, though, that they really, affect us almost as much as the full moons. They are jarring. They stimulate change. They can make us restless, anxious, a bit stressed, but also motivated to make change. With third quarter moon specifically, like the one we're experiencing this week, this is more philosophical in nature. So there could be a lot of change happening physically, a lot more physical activity, physical action with that quarter moon. But a lot of the change and, the activity is mental. It's cerebral, philosophical, especially considering this is a Gemini placement, a Gemini happening, third quarter moon in Gemini. We're going to be really questioning things, really learning, adapting, changing our approach to things, coming across new information, things like that. So, definitely interesting. I don't think it's worth skipping. If anything, I would skip like the new moon, because that is usually the least active stage. Of course, there's really important symbology and meaning in the new moon too. But if you're just like an average Joe and you're just here to see like, how is my day-to-day experience going to be? I do think the third quarter moon is definitely worth listening to. It's definitely has very tangible effects for sure. And that's pretty much it. Moon will be traveling from Taurus through Leo this week. And so I think this is really exciting, especially, I just did last week's forecast and it was going through this really volatile area and we had the full moon and everything. This week is such a breath of fresh air in terms of the moon. So yes, we still have Mercury retrograde. We're still going through these changes and integrating and, ruminating, going over the past. That can definitely be heavy, and that continues this week. However, moon representing the emotion and where we're at on a deep personal level, that becomes much lighter this week than last week. Moon in Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, it really thrives in all of these signs. Moon is exalted in Taurus, it's in joy in Gemini, it's in domicile in Cancer. Even Leo, it does pretty well. So this whole general area that the moon will travel over this week is very generally harmonious for sure. The third quarter moon is one exception that will kind of rile us up, make us a bit unsettled. But other than that, moon is going through some pretty chill signs, so we can feel kind of confident, kind of stable emotionally. Of course, that depends on your own individual astrology, but generally speaking, that is the consensus, that is the communal experience, I would say. So definitely, I think something to look forward to after last week. Last week was pretty jarring, pretty stimulating. This week should be a little bit more chill, with that exception of the uptick of energy from the Gemini third quarter moon. Last thing I want to mention before we get into the day-by-day forecast is, with moon traveling from Taurus to Leo this week, it will be waning now. So we're coming off of that full moon from last week. Moon is now waning. It's losing light. So although moon's energies, or in other words, although the emotional energy can go up and down, kind of like tides in response to moon and transiting through different signs every 2.5 days, although that energy can be, up and down, the overall theme with moon waning is that the energy is becoming less. Things are becoming more chill, more inward focused. That's the focus as the moon loses light, like it will all week this week. Okay, so that's another thing pointing to, things are becoming a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more chill. Of course, there are some exceptions. Of course, there are some areas that there are always, changes and growth, and we're going to talk about that. But generally speaking, this week looks like a little bit more chill. Okay, so I'm definitely happy. I feel like I'm almost beaming to like deliver some good news, maybe, because last couple of weeks are pretty rough. I'm not going to lie. And right before we get into the day-by-day forecast, I did want to mention, if you are interested in getting a reading, check out my website, manic.mercurian.net, or email me, manic.mercurian@gmail.com. These readings are, they're a lot of fun. I think they are very meaningful, very helpful, and they just are, they help support the channel. They allow me to continue posting videos like this. So thank you all those who have gotten readings. And if you're interested, definitely hit me up. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel, like the video. All of that helps me as well. I do very much appreciate it. Okay, but for the day-by-day forecast, let's start out with Monday, September 4th. So we start out with moon in a really strong position. It actually doesn't get much better than this in regard to where the moon is at. So moon is in Taurus. It's exalted. This is regarded as the strongest, the most stable, the most harmonious sign to put the moon in. Of course, each moon sign, whether we're talking about transiting or in birth charts, each different moon sign has different strengths and different, unique attributes that we can value, things of that nature. However, moon in Taurus, if there was a best sign to put the moon, it would probably be moon in Taurus. Here, moon is, of course, the emotional energy. And in Taurus, there's this really happy medium of being strong enough, individualistic enough to know our goals or know our boundaries. We know, our vision is kind of black and white in terms of, what do I want? What do I not want? Moon in Taurus, the more we embrace moon in Taurus, we're not going to let anyone walk over us. We are serving ourselves. However, at the same time, there's still enough empathy with moon in Taurus to be receptive to others, to be nurturing. So this is That's kind of why it's almost a perfect energy in terms of, being nurturing, being receptive, being open to the feelings and thoughts of others, yet at the same time having strong boundaries as well. So that's why Moon does so well in Taurus. How each of us experiences that, of course, depends on our own natal astrology. But generally speaking, we can all embrace Moon in Taurus over the next couple of days as a easy, simple energy to experience. We can be a little bit more emotionally confident. All of this is strengthened as well because Sun is in Virgo, of course. So Moon, as it travels through Taurus, it's trining Virgo. This is an easy, harmonious aspect. This Monday is like a softball. You know what I mean? It's an easy throw, so to speak. It's an easy one. You're not going to get much of an easier start to the week other than this. Yes, Mercury is still retrograde. That's probably the one main exception. So there could be some still, dysfunction there. Like I said in the intro, though, we're kind of used to that by now. We're at this point, if you don't understand that we have to be a bit more intuitive, a bit more open, with Mercury retrograde, a bit more introspective, a bit slower. If you don't understand that by now, you're probably not going to get it because, like I said, we're about halfway through the Mercury retrograde. Yes, that can bring in dysfunction. However, with Moon exalted in Taurus and trining the Sun, specifically in the morning Eastern Standard Time, this is really stable energy. It's an Earth trine. They're agreeable energies, so this is stability, it's inner confidence, inner peace. These things could be heavy, but that's great because they're grounding. So we can also be very practical with these energies, very responsible, this could be great for work ethic, for productivity, things of that nature. So really strong, really stable, really great for getting some work done. Like I said in the last forecast, though, Earth energies are heavy, they are slower, so if you do need to rest on Monday, I think most of us are working on Monday, but if you're in a place where you need to rest, this could be excellent for that too, especially with Mercury retrograde. That's supporting us in being slow, or if we are being productive. If you're being productive, especially when it comes to things that are having to do with integration, organizing, taking stock, taking inventory, things like that could be very much supported not only by Sun and Virgo, Moon and Taurus, but also by Mercury retrograde at the same time. It's productivity, not in the sense of like going out and conquering the world. It's more productivity of, what can I do to give myself a solid foundation? What can I do to promote my own emotional health, mental health, things of that nature. One last thing I'm going to kind of gloat about or beam about in regard to the Moon. Moon is also, not only does it trine the Sun early in the day, later in the day, just afternoon Eastern Standard Time, Moon will conjoin Jupiter as well. So, that's why I say that you can't get it much better than this when you look at the Moon. Moon's exalted in Taurus, it's trining the Sun, and then it conjoins Jupiter. Jupiter is a benefic, it makes things easier, and it expands things. So this could really bring the focus even more to this, solidarity we're experiencing. I don't know if that's the right word, but that, solidness we feel deep down, the stability, feeling grounded, feeling practical, all of that explodes and becomes even, more impactful, more, I don't want to say intense necessarily. It's not really intense. It's just more of a strong factor, more dominating of the day. And Jupiter is an optimistic energy as well. So with Moon trining the Sun, approaching this conjunction, and then passing Jupiter today, we're feeling not only strong, stable, grounded, but in an optimistic way, in a positive way. We're feeling kind of upbeat, like really strong. So I think one way that this could go about is many of us have gone through the work over the last couple of weeks, of those difficult transits and difficult things that I explained over the last couple of weeks. I think many of us have gone through that work. We've done the work. We've learned a lot. We've grown a lot. We're still continuing to grow and learn. Mercury's still retrograde. However, this energy to me shows a lot of us, are kind of being rewarded. We are feeling stable, feeling positive, feeling good. We're able to rest, able to get work done, etc. So really, really great stuff. Really, really awesome. This type of thing really does make me excited. However, what's more interesting about this whole dynamic, though, is Jupiter does turn retrograde on the same day, on Monday, September 4th. Jupiter at 15 degrees Taurus does station retrograde. So like I talked about last week with Venus, whenever planets station direct or station retrograde, they have to slow down before they appear to change direction from our point of view. And so in doing so, they intensify. So Jupiter it's basically at a standstill. Jupiter is one of the more outer planets, so it doesn't travel super fast anyway, but it's even slower than usual really this week. You could really even say like a week before today and a week after, Jupiter has slowed down as it stations retrograde. So it is intensified. So the abundance, the growing, the learning, not learning in the sense of like learning, Googling things and getting factoids, but Jupiter is about, philosophy and spirituality, religion, where are we at in the cosmos? These types of things could be kind of intensified again, give or take a week for the last week and for the next week as well. More specifically though, Jupiter is in Taurus, so it specifically applies to these major changes that have been occurring with our economy. So, not only is Uranus in Taurus, but Jupiter's there as well. So these are long-term energies, for many months now and many months to come. We've experienced a lot of volatility with the economy, with money. I don't have to tell you that. You already know that. But sudden changes, sudden growth with commodities, values, things of that nature. So, these energies have already been, affecting these types of things for us. But now with Jupiter stationing retrograde, I hate to say it, but Jupiter is abundance, and as it turns retrograde, it can almost appear that abundance is kind of taken away, because when planets are retrograde, they do become subdued. Their energies aren't as tangible. They're not as obvious. And, with Jupiter, that can be kind of a bummer because Jupiter makes things easier. It brings abundance. Specifically, Jupiter in Taurus, is about financial abundance. How do we support ourselves in an abundant way? So, the economy, it's in a weird place right now. There are many parts of the economy that are kind of disastrous, right? But with Jupiter there, it's been kind of propping us up, bringing this abundance. My point is that now, and then in the weeks after now, with Jupiter retrograde in Taurus, that could kind of pull the rug out from under our feet. That could pull out, any feelings we had of financial abundance in the economy. That could be taken away. Excuse me. This could be a damper to all those things. This could mark the start to kind of a rough time, economically speaking. And the reason why I say this is interesting regarding the moon is because, like I said, moon conjoins Jupiter as this is happening. So typically, when outer planets station retrograde, it's kind of, ambiguous. Our attention may not be really there. These things happen slowly. They happen in the background. These outer planets affect us more on a, outer level, on a societal level, on a global level. They affect us over, years and decades rather than days or even months, right? So typically, with like a planet like Jupiter stationing retrograde, typically we might not notice it. It would just be something, happening somewhere else in the world. However, However, this is a little bit different because Moon happens to be crossing over Jupiter right as it stations retrograde. Okay, so rather than it being something just happening off somewhere else, Moon represents how we're feeling. It represents our day-to-day consciousness, day-to-day focus, day-to-day experience. So with Moon crossing over Jupiter, that brings these changes, the subdued economic changes, the changes to the abundance, changes to values, the economy, stocks, things like that. That brings all those changes into our immediate day-to-day focus and awareness, if that makes sense. This means that these changes to the economy or whatever it is will actually affect how we're feeling. It affects, our individual day-to-day experience. Does that make sense? So this could be a bit jarring. Moon is still in a great place. This does look still like a really great day. I went on and on about how awesome it was. I'm not taking that back. All of that still applies. However, there could be some kind of headlines regarding, a change to the economy or some kind of change in those areas that we will be aware of on some level. Okay, so just keep that in mind. One other aspect for today as well is Mercury trines Jupiter today. And this is interesting because Mercury is, of course, retrograde, so it's traveling backward from our perception. And in doing so, it will pass over 15 degrees where it trines Jupiter. So this is just another aspect showing that, whatever's going on with these changes to the economy, changes to the finances, maybe a subdued energy, a slowing of the economy, potentially a bit troublesome. Whatever it is, it's not, like I said, it's not just affecting, the world. It's not it's not vague, it's not abstract. It's something affecting our immediate focus, because Moon is crossing over Jupiter and Mercury, which also has to do with our day-to-day experience. Mercury is also making an aspect. It's trining Jupiter. And really, it seems like a mixed bag, because, Moon is in such a great place, so we're feeling emotionally strong, feeling confident, but then, aware of some potentially, challenges or sudden changes that could be a bit disturbing, maybe, regarding the economy, things like that. And then also, even this trine between Mercury and Jupiter it's a bit difficult to analyze, honestly, because trines are generally good, they're easy, they're fun, right? These are harmonious aspects, harmonious energies, but it's strange. Both these energies, Mercury's been retrograde, and then Jupiter is now stationing retrograde at the same time as this aspect. So there is some kind of harmony there. There's some kind of abundance, but it's subdued, it's intangible, it's spiritual. It's abstract. It's in our minds. You know what I mean? That's what happens when planets are retrograde. Their themes become a little bit more offline, more intuitive, more about the ether, less about physicality. Okay, so there's still some element of harmony there with the abundance, with the finances. There's something harmonious, but at the same time, there's some kind of change. The harmony, the abundance is fleeting. It's hard to hold on to. It's a feeling. It's a thought, rather than it's hard to analyze. It looks like a mixed bag, financially speaking. It looks like a time of sudden change, something affecting our day-to-day experience. It's very strange. We're feeling good, feeling strong, but at the same time, some kind of ominous changes with our economy that will affect, not only today, but months going forward. Okay, really interesting start to the week for sure. For Tuesday, September 5th, Moon will leave Taurus and enter Gemini. So now, Moon is no longer exalted in Taurus. Moon will still be in Taurus for actually most of the day, though. So all morning and then a bit of the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, Moon is still in Taurus. It's still exalted. Earlier in the day, Moon conjoins Uranus. So that does bring about some volatility, But generally speaking, with Moon in Taurus, we're still, it's still exalted. We're still feeling strong. We're still coming off of that trine between the Moon and the Sun, so still feeling good, holistically. I tend to notice that with Moon trining the Sun, or like today with Moon within orb of trining the Sun, everyone tends to be in a good mood collectively, generally speaking. So we still experience that, all morning with Moon in Taurus, and then afternoon as Moon enters Gemini. Like I said in the intro, this is still a great sign for the Moon to travel over. With Moon entering Gemini, the focus becomes more intellectual. We become more open to change. Moon thrives in Gemini because it's still a sign that's focused on intuition and subtlety, kind of like Cancer in a way. And that's what the Moon is all about. It's about intuition. It's about subtlety. And it's a more small picture energy. It's about the immediate moment. So Gemini very much fits into all that. The major difference, though, between Gemini and a sign that the Moon would be more in home at, like Cancer, the main difference is that Gemini is very detached. So in a way, this almost gives us a break. With Moon in Gemini, we can be kind of fun-loving, we can be open, we can be adaptable, but we don't have to deal with the heavier emotions that we would if Moon was in like a water sign, for example. And I'm not saying that to vilify, emotions or water signs. Moon is generally more at home in water signs like Cancer, because there is richness, there is, intelligence, there's value in emotion for sure. Emotion can be powerful. However, when it comes to, questions of is it easier or not, I do think Moon in Gemini is easier in the sense that, there's value in emotions, but not having to deal with them as much, I do think makes things easier, generally speaking, especially in regard to this type of transit. So anyway, long story short, Moon in Gemini, we don't have to take things so seriously with Moon in Gemini. We can kind of just play around, experiment, learn. We may be desiring variety more so, open to variety. And when you combine Moon in Gemini with Sun and Mercury in Virgo, because that's what we're experiencing today, these energies are very intellectual. They're focused on learning. They're all ruled by Mercury. So the focus now is very much on Mercury. Mercury is still retrograde, so we're still, slowing down, focusing on the past, viewing things from a different way, gaining more context, gaining more thorough understanding of things. This may happen through experiences in our lives that could be a bit dysfunctional, a bit unpredictable, so that can be jarring. However, these energies in general are really excellent for learning, especially that thorough learning for Mercury retrograde. Okay, so yeah, in general, if you have earth or air energies, this is going to be easy for you. And if you don't, like I've said before, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. These energies are very intellectual, very cerebral. This is a great day for learning something new, watching a documentary, reading, writing, speaking. You could have really excellent conversations today. Moon in Gemini shows that we're maybe a little bit more stimulated by social interactions, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be highbrow, learning about deep, advanced concepts. Of course, that could be good too with energies like this. However, with this Mercury dominance and Moon in Gemini, we can have fun even just with like gossip, or even just, talking about ideas, talking about people. Mercury energy, and specifically Moon in Gemini, supports us in talking about anything, analyzing anything, ranging from, the deepest, even crude things to, the shallowest, even crude things to deep concepts everywhere in between. That's generally the focus on going forward from Tuesday, September 5th. And then I should mention as well, I know it's a little bit too late, but Wednesday, September 6th, Moon continues through Gemini. It is with an orb of that third quarter moon, okay? Actually, today on Wednesday, we will get that exact third quarter moon. So my apologies, I should have mentioned that for Tuesday, but, Tuesday and Wednesday with Moon in Gemini, yes, it is kind of light, breezy. We can be detached, not take things so seriously with Moon in Gemini, but at the same time, keep in mind, even starting on Tuesday, we will already feel that third quarter moon, and that can be agitating. It can be restless. Can be stressful, especially if you're not aware of it, if you're not sure what's going on. But yeah, let's talk about that. So Wednesday, September 6th, Moon in Gemini. Moon, once it reaches 14 degrees Gemini, it will square the sun. It's a waning square, so that's where we get that third quarter moon aspect. And quarter moons in general mark times of significant change, okay? And like I said in the intro, first quarter moons, so not like this one, but if the moon was on the other side of the zodiac, it would be more about physical activity, physical change, okay? With this type of aspect, yes, it can still be about physical change, physical activity, but third quarter moons specifically have more to do with changes mentally. They can be it's very existential. It could be a mental crisis or a crisis of consciousness, it's been called. So that's the focus here. We're reaching that critical point where whatever has started and then developed over the last few weeks now reaches this critical point where, if it is something that fits into this month time frame where it's something is 3 weeks old, now would be the time to say, like, okay, is this really something that's going to stick around for another cycle? Is it something that's going to become semi-permanent, or is it going to fade away? Because some things only last a month, and this, I know this is very general, it's very vague, but some things only last a month. So if whatever it was started 3 weeks ago, now is the time where it would kind of begin to rot or decay or fade away, until it kind of disappears by the next new moon in a week, okay? However, it's not just about things that have happened over the last month. This could be things that have transpired for longer than that we are reevaluating, rethinking. There's just this general restlessness in the air, and this is exacerbated by the sign that this is in as well. So Gemini is already an energy that's very philosophical, existential, very mental. I mean that in the sense of like mentally oriented, cerebral, but it's also mental in the sense that it can be kind of crazy as well. Gemini already is all those things. So adding this third quarter moon there, it kind of strengthens a lot of themes that Gemini already has. So we may feel a bit crazy. We may feel a bit unstable. There's a lot of frenetic energy, scattered energy, feeling restless, feeling stressed. To avoid that stress, the restlessness, basically just do something. That's all there is to it. Specifically, do something involving, changes to your life, improvements, or learning, cerebral activities, learning, researching, all of these things. Those are some potential areas you can make changes in because, like I said, again, moon's ruled by Mercury, sun and Mercury are both also ruled by Mercury. there's a lot of Virgo and Gemini now. So these changes will be very cerebral, very mentally oriented. They will come to you in information that you're discovering today, or just changes in your perception. But yeah, again, this doesn't have to be stressful. It's just an excellent time for making some kind of change. I wouldn't necessarily launch some kind of huge project today, because third quarter moons, the moon is waning. Its energies are becoming generally, less strong, and the focus is becoming more ethereal, more mental, less physical, less tangible. So this isn't necessarily a great day for like starting a huge new project necessarily. It's more a time for just making changes. How can you kind of tweak your life a little bit? How can you change your daily regimen, your daily experience, things of that nature. And what's even more interesting about this aspect is that Mercury is involved in as well. So Sun will conjoin Mercury at 13 degrees Virgo. This will be very brief because, of course, Mercury is still retrograde. Sun is direct. It's always direct. So they both make a pass to each other. They pass each other. So, but as they do so, at the very same time, Moon is squaring, not only the Sun, but also Mercury, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So it's a lot of Mercury energy. One sec. Sorry about that. It's a lot of Mercury energy. So not only is Moon in Gemini, Sun's in Virgo, Mercury's in Virgo, but Moon is squaring the Sun and squaring Mercury at the same time. So it's an overdose, and it's an abundance of mental energy. Let's talk specifically about Sun conjunct Mercury as well. So even if we just had that and we didn't even have the third quarter moon, Sun conjunct Mercury represents, you would think that this is a conjunction, so it strengthens Mercury, right? It strengthens the energy. That's not necessarily the case with Sun conjunctions. When planets conjoin the Sun, they are, of course, in the same approximate area of the sky as the Sun, and they are burnt out. You obviously, can't see them at all. Unless it's an eclipse, you can't see them at all. So therefore, Mercury in this case, the mental energy, the learning, the communication, all of these themes are burnt out by the Sun. They are overly intensified. I'm picturing like if you turn the voltage up too high and the lights get brighter and brighter until they just like burn out completely. That's what this is. So on the one hand, with this energy, as well as with the third quarter moon in Gemini and this general Mercury focus, all of these things will push us toward being more cerebral, more analytical, more detail oriented, more generally busy. We may be thinking more, communicating more, thinking, talking, researching, writing, planning with lots of details and getting a lot done, being very productive, talking to this person and that person, doing these errands over here, over there. We may all be a little bit more like Mercury, more like these Mercury energies with these types of energies, with these transits that are going on. But at the same time, it's too much of a good thing. We may be burnt out. It's like there's too much electricity. Our nervous systems they can have the potential to be fried with these energies. So my advice for today would be, for one, this would be a great time for making some kind of change. That's my advice for every quarter moon. Specifically with this one, it's mental, it's philosophical. So, make some kind of change and partake in some intellectual or analytical activities. Learn something new. However, what's the word? Exhibit moderation, experience moderation, okay? So, maybe learn a lot, research a lot, get a lot of errands done, but give yourself breaks, drink lots of water, take time to rest every now and then, because again, you may burn yourself out today. It could be too much mental energy, too many details, too many facts, too much busyness, so embrace the busyness, learn something new, but also slow down. It's about balance today. If you're too busy, too active, you'll have that burnout that I described. But if you lean the other way and are too restful, if you're just trying to chill out today and you've got like hippie vibes, that's not going to work either, because these energies are supporting change, okay? So if you just try to rest and sleep all day, it's going to drive you crazy. You're going to get stressed out. Long story short, it's about balance. Make some kind of change, learn something new, but also take your time, okay? Okay, and I'm hoping this forecast won't be too long because we're already at 34 minutes. But, Okay, Thursday, September 7th, moon continues through Gemini. So, like I always say, we're not in that exact third quarter moon yet anymore. We don't have that peak of intensity that we did one day prior. But moon is still in Gemini, sun's still, of course, in Virgo. So they are loosely squaring each other still. And same with the sun Mercury conjunction as well. They have passed each other. Like I said, this is relatively brief since they're appearing to travel in different directions in the sky. However, they're still 2 degrees apart. So much of what I said from Wednesday applies to today as well. It's just not quite as acute. It's not quite as intense. So still lots of mental energy, busyness, learning something new, talking, researching, writing, feeling a bit uneasy, feeling a bit restless. All of that applies to today. It's just not quite as intense as it was on Wednesday for most of us. Okay, and then again, just to reassert my advice again, it's still a great time for making some kind of change, doing something new, embracing some level of busyness, doing something detail-oriented, analyzing, learning, talking. It's still a great time for all of those things, but again, use not caution, use caution too, but use moderation. Allow yourself to have breaks through today. I think that would be the best thing. You can't be too restful today. That would be stressful. But same with being too busy. That's going to be stressful too. Be productive, make some kind of change, do something today, but also give yourself time to take breaks and drink lots of water. That's my that's my advice for keeping your nervous system strong. And also one last thing about this, specifically the quarter moon. If you don't have, let's say you don't have any major changes that you want to make in your life, I would say that this type of energy, specifically the third quarter moon on Wednesday, but even Thursday as well, I do think these energies would push you to viewing things a different way, making some kind of change. I do think these things push us to be motivated. But if you get to these days and you really just say, there's nothing in my life I want to change, I don't know what to do, manic.mercurian told me to make some kind of change, but I don't have any change I want to make in my life. At the very least, just do something active, go on a run, a jog, or even just a walk. Do some kind of physical activity, some kind of sport, something active. Get out of the house, or even if you're in your house, do something, something active, because even that will help you to decompress, unwind, get that energy out. That can avoid stress and restlessness as well. Okay, one last thing I want to briefly mention for Thursday, September 7th. In the latter half of the day, Eastern Standard Time, let's say, late afternoon, moon will reach 26 degrees Gemini, where it will square 26 degrees Neptune. And I don't usually talk about lunar aspects necessarily. I do sometimes, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, keep in mind what I already said. There's this restlessness, this mental energy, learning, being busy. We still have all of that. That still applies. But now for these few hours where we have this square between the moon and Neptune, this channels in a much different energy. This channels in that Neptunian, Piscean energy. So this channels in being a bit in our own world, so to speak. Again, this is afternoon, Thursday, September 7th. We may be a bit in our own worlds. This, on the one hand, this could lead to confusion, delusion. We may be more likely to partake in vices or escapism. On the other hand, this could be good in the sense that this could be fantastical. It could be pleasurable. This could be romantic. It could actually be excellent for learning something new. I know that sounds a bit odd with Neptune. Typically, this does make things foggy and confusing, delusional. It's hard to think rationally. It's hard to measure things and be objective with aspects like this with Neptune. However, with the combination of all this mental energy and the, bringing in Neptune's energy as well, this could indicate some kind of breakthrough, some kind of existential breakthrough, some kind of breakthrough with metaphysics. You may suddenly have this epiphany that changes your worldview. It could be something spiritual in nature, something metaphysical, something having to do with like music or art or creativity. And these streaks of geniusness, these streaks of realization, they can be very invigorating. They can be excellent for, gaining new awareness. But they can also make you crazy. And that's where, again, this is a Neptunian theme. This can make you feel crazy because although you may learn something kind of radical and new, in doing so, it could actually threaten your mental stability. and it could make you more alone. These are more Neptune and Pisces themes. Also, in learning something new, it may be something very radical. There could be a lot of truth in it, but at the same time, it could be subjective. It's like the lines between subjective and objective blur today. If you learn something new and are viewing the world in a really raw, authentic way, but it also kind of makes you crazy and no one else understands, is that true? Is it objective? Or is that just your own experience? Is it both things? It could be both. Do you see what I'm saying? It can complicate things. It can be a lot of fun. It can be productive in the sense of learning something new, becoming more conscious. But at the same time, this could potentially threaten our mental and emotional well-being, emotional health, especially the combination of all three. This is a loose T-square between Sun and Virgo, Moon and Gemini, Neptune and Pisces. Blurring, mixing all these mutable energies can make us crazy, basically. This could be really great for being open, adapting, learning something new, but they can make us crazy as well. So again, my advice is just moderation. This specific aspect with Neptune, like I said, is brief. It's not going to be a super big deal, but if you feel a little bit crazy going halfway through Thursday, September 7th, that could be why. And honestly, if that is the case, my advice is kind of just stick it out. That tends to be my advice with Neptune aspects. Because it makes things confusing, it's not always clear, is there a problem? If there is, what do I do about it? What should I do? Should I fix it? It's not like Saturn or, a different energy where there's a problem and, you're expected to do something about it. A lot of the time with Neptune, you just kind of ride it out. You have to just kind of surrender to it, embrace it, ride it out. Fortunately, this is a brief one. So if you're feeling crazy, just know that this is temporary. It will likely fade by evening Eastern Standard Time of September 7th, okay? So yeah, just, again, take breaks, drink water, have periods of rest today, but also, be active, get something done as well. Okay, and then Friday, September 8th, what I'm noticing this week is that these energies to me are pretty much straightforward, yet at the same time, they seem to be taking a lot of time to explain. So they're complex in the sense that, they're multifaceted, I guess you could say. But at the same time, from an astrological perspective, they're kind of simple, if that makes sense. So hopefully I'm making sense to you guys. September 8th, there is a huge change. Very early in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, Moon will leave Gemini and enter Cancer. So this, of course, dramatically changes the dynamic. Now we are very much distancing ourselves from that third quarter moon we experienced earlier in the week. And honestly, I think things will become a little bit more simple with Moon and Cancer. For one, because, Gemini is, of course, very scattered. There were a lot of changes over the last few days, and also, with that third quarter moon as well, that changed a lot. It antagonized us to some extent. Moon in Cancer is much more chill energy, especially because it's, now Moon is with an orb of a sextile to the sun. Cancer and Virgo blend in a much more harmonious way than Gemini and Virgo do, if you catch my drift. So in other words, Moon is now in a sign that is not only more chill, less active than Gemini, but Moon's also in a sign that blends together better with the sun. So what this means for your day-to-day experience is emotionally, for one, you may be more in touch with your emotions going into Friday, September 8th. I feel like some people could kind of flinch at that. That could sound like it's not fun, but this could actually be great when it comes to simplifying things. Cancer is a heavier energy than Gemini. Cancer is water. With Moon in Cancer, Moon's in domicile there, so we feel very aware of our emotions. We know exactly how we feel with Moon in Cancer. So in a way, this could actually be refreshing coming from the last few days where we were all in our minds, in our brains. It was very mental, very busy, very scattered. Now we can kind of just take it back home with Moon in Cancer. We are tuckered out, we're tired. We had our nervous systems maybe a little bit fried over the last few days. Now with Moon in Cancer, let's go back to our feelings. Let's chill out. Let's come home a little bit. And then also too, like I said, Moon is not yet sextiling the sun, but we're within orb of that. So we're back in harmonious territory. And now this is a more complementary dynamic rather than just having all these, mentally oriented energies and, super intellectual, hyper focused on changes and analyzing everything, rather than just having the whole chart be about that, so to speak. Not literally the whole chart, of course, but rather than that being the dominant theme, now we have a bit of a mix. Going into Friday, September 8th, yes, Sun and Mercury are still in Virgo, so this is still intellectual, analytical. Let's learn, let's analyze, let's get a deeper understanding. Let's organize, take stock, etc., etc. That is still generally the focus. We are still in the middle of Virgo season. However, with Moon in Cancer, this is adding a different layer of, let's do those things, but also stay in touch with our emotions at the same time. Let's learn about our world, but also, we're very aware of how we feel now as we're doing those things too. Does that make sense? So on the one hand, you've got a lot of mental energy, but now we're bringing the emotion back in as well. Lots of emotion now, also lots of mental energy. The combination between the two, I think, can be very powerful. Having that deep emotion, knowing exactly how we feel, maybe a lot of intuition from that emotion, combining that with the ability to analyze and learn, that's very powerful. We can have a truly deep understanding and maybe acquire some wisdom with that. I know I went super specific into where the sun and moon are, how we each experience this will of course be always different. I know I say that in every forecast, but for some of us it may look a lot different than others. Of course, look to where the sun and moon are relative to your own birth chart to see how you will be experiencing these things. If you have more earth and water, the next couple days are going to be a breeze for you. If you don't have earth and water, this could be, a little bit unusual. But generally speaking, for us as a whole, it's a little bit more complementary, a bit more harmonious, and definitely more chill. I think that's the biggest difference going from Thursday to Friday. Things are more chill on Friday. We had another hectic week. I don't think this week was as crazy as the last few weeks, but this one was definitely a bit hectic. Lots of new changes, so now we can take it home on Friday. We can chill out a little bit as we prepare for the weekend. One aspect for Friday, so that would be Sun trining Jupiter. Typically, this would be very fun, very harmonious. Both the Sun and Jupiter are benefics. Sun more has to do with our day-to-day experiences or experience in general. Sun is in Virgo, so we're in Virgo season. I think you all know what that means. Now with this trine to Jupiter, we're channeling in the Jupiter energy. So typically this is really harmonious. Jupiter is a benefic. It makes things easier most of the time. There are a few exceptions, but typically channeling in that Jupiter energy, it channels in that optimism, that that spirited energy, that spirit of adventure, of celebration, of pioneering. That's what Jupiter is all about. So that's what we are more likely to experience on our day-to-day level with this trine between Sun and Jupiter. However, keep in mind Jupiter is recently retrograde. I'm sure you know that if you're listening to this, because it just turned retrograde on Monday. So everything I just said will still be true. However, at the same time, I do think, like I said previously, Jupiter retrograde could indicate some kind of financial turmoil, financial slowing, financial challenges. And with the Sun trining Jupiter, yes, it is a trine. Yes, it's harmonious. It's generally positive. However, at the same time, let's not sugarcoat it. We may be more aware of those changes to our finances, to our economy. And those things, again, could be a bit more troublesome, a bit darker. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I still think we're in generally a pretty good mood today. It looks overall pretty harmonious. But there is that little just twinge of darkness there. We may be more aware of something going on collectively, something going on with society, government, politics, the economy. We may be aware of something going on there that is more challenging, more darker. I don't want to say bad necessarily, but could be an indication of harder times economically, I would say. Okay, Saturday, September 9th, Moon continues through Cancer, and this is beautiful because we get that exact sextile between the Moon and the Sun. So this is a waning sextile, meaning that the Moon is still losing light, but Moon will appear as a waning crescent. And I always say, not only is this aspect beautiful astrologically speaking, but if you see the Moon in the sky today, it literally looks beautiful as well. I don't know, these things, I want to do a video series on this actually about how like the planets, even just observing these things in the sky, you can kind of get a drift of what their symbology is. So this is no exception. With Moon sextiling the Sun, literally looks beautiful in the sky, and it has somewhat beautiful implications for us as well. Where do I start? So in its most basic form, I think moon sextiling the sun gives us a really great shot at being in a collective good mood. That's because these energies are harmonious, they are complementary to each other. So a lot of what I said for Friday continues on Saturday. You've got the mental focus, we're learning, we're adapting, we're organizing, we're preparing with Sun and Mercury and Virgo. But also, with Moon in Cancer, this is a great addition. We're not just focused on, the mental focus. We're not just analyzing and, observing everything rationally. We're doing that, but we're also aware of our emotions and intuition at the same time. So this is very powerful. And, another thread that runs through both of these energies is these are slower energies. This is earth and water. So these energies are heavier. They're supporting growth. Like they're supporting, let's take it back to the basics. Let's partake in things that are simple in nature. Yes, Virgo can represent complicated energies, but I think Sun Virgo, Mercury Virgo, they support us in enjoying the simplicity of things as well. And with Moon in Cancer, we're more enjoying things that are familiar to us. So hanging out at home or in places that are familiar, being with people that we already know very well, close friends, family, etc. That's what Moon in Cancer supports. So in general, this is kind of sacred simplicity. Let's take it home. Let's chill out. That's generally the focus for today and really the weekend as a whole. So I would say, this to me would more indicate staying at home. If you're wondering what to do for the weekend, I think this would generally be more of, let's stay at home. Let's just chill. Let's have fun at home. Or like I said, it could be places that are familiar to you. Going to a favorite restaurant, favorite park, enjoying nature could be really great today. But yeah, this isn't risk-taking energy. This is like chill, calculated, let's do things that are a safe bet. Let's not take any risks. Let's just kind of be chill today. If you need to be active or, go out and do something, I would definitely say to go out and do that. It's not that would be a terrible idea. It's just that these energies are slower in general, especially because Mercury is still retrograde. Combining that with Sun in Virgo, Moon in Cancer, these are heavy energies. They're slow in nature. Okay, and then lastly, for Sunday, September 10th, Moon does leave Cancer and enter Leo today. And this will happen, looks like just afternoon Eastern Standard Time. So in the morning, we can have like kind of a stereotypical Sunday morning, I think, with Sun in Virgo, Moon in Cancer. We can have kind of a slow start to the morning, if we have that luxury, if we're not working. We can start out the morning kind of slow, restful. Cancer can be a bit of a complacent energy, I would say. And there's nothing wrong with that. With Moon in Cancer, again, we're more aware of how we feel in the immediate moment. And so we may be more likely to, just focus on, let's just be cozy. Let's have a slow start to the day. It's like Jack Johnson vibes, banana pancakes or whatever. I don't even listen to that kind of music. That just randomly popped in my head. But that's the vibe for today. Let's take it slow. Let's take it easy. Let's chill out. If you have to work today, it may be harder to wake up. That could be a downside. But yeah, generally speaking, these are chill energies. Of course, this changes afternoon when Moon enters Leo. That changes the dynamic. And by now, Moon is, losing light. It's barely visible. It's becoming a crescent. It's becoming a sliver. I don't know the exact names for all the lunar cycles. I will be totally transparent with you. But at this point, the Moon, is losing light. It's becoming less and less visible. Therefore, going forward, I always say it's not that the themes of the Moon vanish, because the Moon is not actually vanishing. It's just vanishing from our perception, right? It's becoming dark. It's not lit up by the sun anymore. So the themes of the Moon, the emotion, the day-to-day focus, the intuition, all of these things will still be there over the next several days as the Moon loses light. But they are becoming more ethereal, more fleeting, more non-physical, more subconscious. That's the focus. So it's a bit odd because Moon is entering Leo, where typically this is a more outgoing energy. It's more playful, more fun. It's fiery, right? Because it's Leo. However, again, keep in mind the angle. Where is the Moon at relative to the sun? Where are we at in the lunar cycle? Moon is in Leo, so we may be focused on having fun, being playful, being more outgoing, more expressive with our creativity. But again, we may be doing all those things in more subtle ways, covert ways, hidden ways. We may be focused on those things on a more subconscious level because the Moon is a dark moon. The dark moons can make things literally dark, kind of heavy. But they can also be dark in the sense that things are obscured, things are mysterious. etc. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. It's a bit of a weird one. Okay, but that's what I have for you for this week. I apologize that this forecast did run a little bit long. I try to be very concise with these. I try to make it short for you guys. But I hope that the information I gave you was helpful, or at least entertaining in some kind of way. Or if you're learning astrology, hopefully it helped you learn astrology. And yeah, so honestly, it looks like a very chill week compared to what we've been experiencing over the last few weeks. Stay tuned next week. We do have a new moon in Virgo, and Mercury turns direct at 8 degrees Virgo. So, a lot of Virgo themes, changes with Virgo. So changes with the information, the intellect, learning, integrating, organizing, all of these things, that's the focus. That's where the changes are. And, yes, Mercury retrograde, I think, we can take advantage of that. It's great for learning, getting a deeper understanding. We've been experiencing that for a while now. But next week with Mercury turning direct, although, how do I put this? Although Mercury retrograde is not a bad thing and we can take advantage of it, I still think it's a relief when Mercury turns direct, right? Because most of us were born with Mercury direct. Mercury direct is just easier. It's simpler for us to experience. We still need the Mercury retrograde times for gaining that thorough understanding, experiencing more intuition and creativity. These are very valuable to us for sure. But that doesn't change the fact that, I get a little bit happy when I see Mercury direct. So we can look forward to some increased simplicity in our near future. Hopefully this is because we've gone through the work, we've gained some, deeper understanding of our lives. And now going into next week, pretty soon we'll be at the point where we can move forward. One last thing about that. I know I'm giving you a lot about next week, but with Mercury direct, Mercury's still having to go over the area that it just went back over. So we're still going to be focusing on a lot of the same themes that we've been experiencing during the whole Mercury retrograde. The difference is we're moving forward, getting these things done. Things become simpler, easier. We're dealing with the same things, but we're getting them done, integrating them, moving on and, traveling forward, basically. Okay, so that's what I have for you this week. Hopefully that was fun, entertaining, or helpful, and have a great week. I'll see you next week.